proposed revisions to District Regulation 2.16, which is our Title V operating permits regulation. Specifically, if you look at the red line strikeout, we're proposing to remove section 1.13 and 4.7. So I can give you all a little background on it, and then I figure we can open the floor to any more.
Before you go,
So sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I want to go ahead and take a roll. Oh, I'm going to start. No. It's really fun. So I'm going to call the meeting to order and recognize the quorum. And Candace, since you're online, I'm going to go ahead and conduct a roll call of the committee members that are present. When I call your name, please say here. Candace Joe White.
Here.
Charlie Bell.
Here.
Charlie Bartolo.
here,
Thank you. Okay, we need to review the draft amendment to Regulation 216, Title V Operating Permits, version 8. If we approve this revision as drafted, this will be brought in for a 30-day public notice before being brought to the board for approval. So APCD Regulated Coordinator Lauren Robbins will give a brief summary of the regulation. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Sorry for interrupting. So this revision removes references to the emergency affirmative defense provisions. These provisions allowed sources to avoid liability and enforcement proceedings by demonstrating that violations of certain emission limitations were caused by an emergency situation. This revision is prompted by the EPA's July 21st, 2023 final rule requiring agencies to remove the emergency affirmative defense provisions from their Title V operating permit program regulations, as the EPA found these provisions to be inconsistent with the enforcement structure of the Clean Air Act. If anyone has any questions, we can discuss that, or I can ask for a motion to open.
no questions.
Thank you.
Then at this time, I would ask for a motion to open the public comment period for Regulation 2.16.
Motion to open.
A second,
We will now vote on the measure. When I call your name, please vote yes or no. Candace Joe White.
yes.
Charlie Bell.
Yes.
Charlie Bartolo.
Yes.
Okay, the regulation is approved for public notice.
Thank you all.
Just a reminder that if you want to attend the board meeting at 10, stay on this link and we'll begin. You do not have to close the WebEx link. And for members of the public that are here, remember that you need to sign in for the board meeting separately from the policy committee meeting. Policy committee meeting of the board is now adjourned. Thank you for your participation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the monthly meeting of the Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control Board. I ask for your patience as we get everyone in place and ready to begin. I will call the meeting to order in just a few minutes. First, call to order in recognition of quorum. I will conduct a roll call of the board members that are present on this teleconference. When I call your name, please say here. Steve Sullivan, he is absent. Candace Shobi White,
Here,
Marissa Neal, not on, okay.
She said she was going to be a little bit late. So she is here. Oh, is she?
She is, okay.
Hold on, I have an email. She needs to be promoted.
Okay,
Please circle back to her.
all right. Charlie Bell,
Here.
Dr. Saeed Jamil, Is he? No, not present. Charlie Bertolon. Here.
Ms. Neal is on.
He's on.
Good morning.
Marissa. Good morning.
Yep.
Marissa.
I'm here now.
So you're here, okay.
Different time
all right.
zone, but I'm here.
Yeah, well, I think we have a quorum, although it's not totally necessary. Next, introductions. Ms. Hamilton?
Thank you, Vice Chair Coburn. I am very happy to be able to introduce to you this morning APCB's new air quality chemist, Laura Wilson. Laura joins us from our quality control part of our air monitoring program. She's been with the district for 7 years doing outstanding work, advancing from a quality control technician to our quality control technician 2. And we are just extraordinarily glad to have her in this new position. She will be leading the district's portion of our Rubbertown Air Toxics Health Assessment Air Monitoring Project. Congratulations. And I'm really glad to see you.
Thank you. I'm really happy to get to be a part of this project, and I'm really excited about getting to use my skill set to, be a success, be part of the success of this grant. Take this work very seriously, and I know just how important the work that the APCD does, and also what this study means to the citizens of Western. So, thank you all for having me, and I'm really excited to get to be a part. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay, public recognitions, Ms. Hamilton?
None this month.
None, okay. Next, approval of minutes. The regular meeting was held on September 18th, 2024, a month ago. The minutes of the regular meeting held on September 18th, 2024 were distributed electronically for review. Are there any changes to these minutes by board members? Hearing none, the minutes are. Next, public comment. Ms. Thorne, is anyone registered to make a comment? Okay. Ms. Thorne, has anyone provided written comments? Okay. Are there any members of the public in the Edison room that wish to make a comment? If so, please raise your hand. Okay. Are there any other members of the public that wish to make a brief comment on this video teleconference? Please raise your hand via video teleconference and you will be called on. It's a feature you can find on the participants list or by pressing *3 of joining by phone, and you will be called. Nothing? Okay. So we can move on. That completes the public comment portion of the meeting. Unfinished business. There is no unfinished business. New business. There is no new business. Committee reports. Policy committee met this morning, as you all know, to discuss and approve certain revisions to district regulation 2.16. So that's it. And then that will go off for public comment. Good. Staff reports. We'll begin with the director's report. Hamilton.
Thank you again. So with the completion of our chemist's hiring, we turned to other work needed by the district. And on Friday, HR passed over 80 applicants for the district's assistant director position. And at this point, I briefly looked at most of them, and I'm really impressed at the candidates who have from both inside APCD and external to APCD applied for the position. So I am working on winnowing those down to identify those that will be interviewing and me. Those interviews can't happen soon enough. So we did talk just a moment ago about those revisions to regulation 2.16. I want to thank everyone for their patience this morning as we worked through our technical difficulties. With respect to the changes there with that regulation, once approved, EPA expects that we will be removing those provisions from Title V permits. And here in Louisville, we have around 32 Title V stationary sources as those permits become due for renewal. So once it's out of the reg, it will be pulled from the permits on a rolling basis. The board at its last meeting approved a second amended agreed board order with the Metropolitan Sewer District to address odors that have been prevalent, particularly west of 9th Street down to the river. Yesterday, I sent copies to the board of MSD's required odor response standard operating procedure. This is in particular focused on short-term responses to odors in the community and their initial short-term action plan for projects identified for completion between July 1st, 2024 and June 30th, 2026. MSD will be posting these to their website, and their next submittal will be a mid-year report. Tell us more about how they're progressing on these projects, which will be due after the end of the fourth quarter. If you've had a chance to look through that report, in particular that short-term action plan, it details a lot of ongoing work that MSD has. The bulk of their work, they estimate that 80% of their funding is going to serve a US EPA required consent decree. When you read their reports and you see that term, that is talking about that US EPA combined sewer overflow consent decree. But my recollection is it's been going on since I think around 2010. They have a large, costly capital improvement project underway at Morris Foreman. It is detailed in this report. For the other parts of the report that focus on odors and odor control, I do want to note that today they are going to be conducting a study at the Western Sewer Outfall. As part of the board's initial agreed board order with MSD, which required them to do an odor study, including Morris Foreman and the collection system, they identified that within the Western Outfall, they have a pressurization issue. Now, because we have that combined stormwater sewer system and we don't have trucks everywhere, oftentimes MSD will describe that when we get a big rainfall, the rain hits our sewer system and it creates a wall of air moving ahead of that water that's flowing through the system. And that air gets pushed out. So you may notice odors as a storm erupts. At the Western Outfall, it's under pressure all the time. It's not waiting on a rain event. It's just pushing out air continually. So today they will be installing a piece of equipment in the neighborhood that they hope will allow them to pull air out of the system, evaluate it so that they can determine what potential chemical odor controls might assist in reducing odors there, or whether this depressurization technology itself would be beneficial. It's my understanding that staff from APCD will be going out to view that test. We look forward to hearing the results from it. MSD has notified neighbors in advance that there will be some noise from the generator that will power the test, and there may be some additional odors in the immediate area as fans draw air out of the sewer. We'll keep our fingers crossed that all goes well and that they learn a lot to help reduce those odors. Tomorrow, the district's air monitoring program manager, Billy DeWitt, and I will be before the Metro Council of Parks and Sustainability Committee to speak on a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept $846,678 from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency through their Fence Line Air Monitoring Inflation Reduction Act. This will be administered by the Air Pollution Control District and is a direct, non-competitive grant from US EPA. We'll be using these funds to replace, repair, operate, and maintain existing monitoring stations, including adding 28 new or upgraded instruments, as well as deploying and operating a mobile multi-pollutant platform. Once we get everything approved, we'll bring the board a presentation, we'll share with Metro Council tomorrow, so you can see what this multiple mobile platform looks like. It's a little bit like Wally, it's kind of cute. Which will include particulate matter, ozone, nitrogen dioxide, and volatile organic compound monitoring. Happily, the grant also includes funding for a full-time air monitoring project manager to develop quality assurance documentation and plans for utilizing the mobile monitoring station for community and fence line assessment, and also assist with quality assurance data over the 3-year term of the grant. Any questions on that? It's a nice award. US EPA Region 4 was awarded $14 million out of the 8 southeastern states in Region 4. Got a large chunk of that. On September 28th, the West Jefferson County Community Task Force held its first quarterly community engagement meeting for the Rubbertown Air Toxic Health Assessment in the Shawnee Golf Course Clubhouse. Despite the area suffering from a power outage due to Hurricane Helene, nearly 30 people attended the evening meeting to hear from project partners about the planned work. Those partners include the University of Louisville Enviro Institute, Park Duval Community Health Centers, the West Jefferson County Community Task Force, Louisville Metro Public Health and Wellness, and the district as part of that meeting. It started off a little dicey. Matt Mudd, myself, and Lauren Anderson from U of L's Environment Institute joined representatives of the West Jefferson County Community Task Force to set up the morning. There was no power there either. So we were gratified to have that power restored and to see such a large crowd right now. This Saturday, the West Jefferson County Community Task Force will hold its 2024 Environmental Justice Conference. The theme there will be environmental health, knowledge is power. It'll be from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the University of Louisville Alumni Club, where our project partners will be sharing more in-depth information about this project and joining in a roundtable discussion with local environmental groups and residents. There is no charge for the conference. Attendance may be in person, where meals, breakfast, and lunch will be served, or you may attend online. A link to the registration for either is being added to the chat, and we hope we'll see you there. Lastly, the district continues to work with our contractor on our exceptional event demonstrations, Canadian wildfire-related ozone impacts that occurred during the summer of 2023. We remain on track for submitting those demonstrations at the end of the year, beginning of the next, and that will follow an opportunity for public comment here in Louisville. For particulate matter, we continue to evaluate our current 2022-2024 design value. And the reason this is important is, as most will remember, US EPA in February strengthened the particulate matter national ambient air quality standard from 12 micrograms to 9 micrograms. That kicks off required elements under the Clean Air Act. The first step will be in February of 2025, when we, state counterparts, recommend to EPA the initial designation of our metropolitan statistical area as attaining the standard or not. Right now, even with the adjustments from that T640 work that US EPA completed, which we talked about at the last board meeting, our 2021-23 design value for Louisville is over 9. Our 2022-24 design value set though shows a trend towards attainment. So we're looking at how we'll make a recommendation to EPA. Please keep in mind, we don't do this in isolation. Our metropolitan statistical area also includes Clark and Floyd County over in Indiana. The Clark County monitor, even with those T640 adjustments for the 2022-2024 design value set, is over 9. So we are speaking with them about their work on exceptional event demonstrations to account for the particulate matter contributions that occurred during those same Canadian wildfire events. We'll continue to keep the board informed as that work progresses. Are there any questions about my director's report? Outstanding. If not, then it is my pleasure this morning to introduce Kathleen Clark, who recently shared a presentation on bioethics of wastewater sampling, which is part of the Rubbertown Air Toxics Health Assessment Project with our RAFA, that's what we call that grant, partners. Given its association with that project, I've asked Kathleen to share her presentation today. Kathleen?
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for the introduction. I am Kathleen Clark. I am an intern at the Environment Institute at U of L. And I just want to thank everybody here for allowing me to present this because it's very nice. So just as a brief overview of what I'll touch on today, I'll start off with a very quick introduction to bioethics, and then I'll move on to a literature review, and then I'll apply the bioethics in the literature to RAFA, and then I'll conclude in questions if there are any. So just to introduce bioethics, it is the study of the ethical and legal issues surrounding biomedical research. And there are four main principles of it. So the first is respect for persons and autonomy. And this is mainly in regards to human subjects research, but it means obtaining informed and voluntary consent that is retractable and ensuring the protection of the subject's rights so that they're not being violated and that they know what they're getting into. And then the second principle is non-maleficence, which means minimizing harm, making sure you're not doing anything that could harm the subjects that is egregious or unnecessary. And then beneficence means maximizing the benefits and making sure something good will come out of the research, that you're not just doing it for research's sake. And then justice is kind of the combination of all three, and that is ensuring the equitable and equal distribution of the benefits and the burdens of the research, so that the what good comes out of it actually goes back to the people who are contributing to it. So a literature review was needed because there's currently not a lot of public policy on environmental or wastewater-based testing. And so it's mainly been up to the researching institutions to kind of make sure they're doing ethical research. So the guiding question was, what concerns have already been raised, and are there any guidelines that have been implemented to address these concerns? And so the first article that I'll cover is Dorn 2022, which came up with a lot of ethical considerations, but the main one had to do with the data being collected. So this kind of research, wastewater-based epidemiology, collects a lot of data, especially if it's being done at a citywide scale or with thousands of people being included. And so oftentimes this data will be used with other groups such as census information, and this can create big data, which is used to influence federal decision-making or even AI decision-making, which then goes back and makes decisions about the communities that were being considered. So because of this, there is a need to guarantee the privacy of anybody who might be contributing to the wastewater, and ensure that the data will be protected so that the data can't be misused or inappropriately making decisions. And they also found that because the data is being collected at such a large level where it is essentially pretty impossible to go back and identify anybody who might have contributed to the wastewater based on any of the samples, there is this kind of ensured anonymity. So informed consent at this level isn't necessary, but here this is individual informed consent. And if you were to go around knocking door to by prioritizing that veto over efficiency, especially in the need of like a crisis or an emergency or something like that. And so the next article is Holm et al., which was a national public survey on public opinion and knowledge of wastewater surveillance. And so they found that public support was the highest for surveilling environmental toxins, deadly diseases, and terroristic threats such as anthrax. And while people were very supportive of these surveillance measures, they didn't quite know what they meant or what they were helpful for or why they were being done. And so, as I said before, since there's not this mass public policy on wastewater-based testing, and we know that public opinion can greatly influence the kind of policy being put out, there is a need to address public knowledge and to educate them and see where we can meet them and get them up to speed. And then the final article in the literature review is Bose et al., which was a structured ethical review for wastewater-based testing. And this was a framework that had 11 categories of important ethical considerations. And it is made so that you kind of decide which categories to prioritize, because obviously not all ethical considerations can be met. But there are 3 levels of ethical sufficiency for each category. So there's 0, which is minimal review required, or 1, which is review suggested, and 2, which is ethical review is strongly suggested. So the first category that RAPA has focused on is data stewardship and protection. So for RAPA, the data is being managed by the requirements set by and for the community and with the community's interests in mind. And this research isn't considered human subjects research because there's not that direct contact with any individuals contributing to the data, but it is protected as human subjects research under lock and key. And then in terms of awareness, RAPA is very good at this. There are representatives of the research in a cycle of continued community outreach. So there are press releases, quarterly meetings, and the National Public Survey also kind of tied into this of gauging where the public is at and establishing that public consent. And then the next category is public decision-making. So is the public involved in the decision-making process about the research being done in their community? And so for RAPA, yes, they are. There is the West Jefferson Community Task Force, which are community representatives directly involved in the research and in the decision-making process. And then for external data sharing, the data collected in this research will be shared with other public health agencies with certain protections in place and data transfer and use agreements to make sure that it is being used appropriately. And so just some further applications for RAPA in terms of the bioethical principles. For respect for persons and autonomy, again, individual informed consent is unnecessary because there is no direct contact with the public, but anonymity is ensured and the data will be protected. But that being said, the public consent has been attained and it is retractable. So that National Public Survey and just understanding public opinion, especially if there is some massive shift, you start seeing parts of the research site getting destroyed or whatever, that would be a sign to kind of change direction of the research. And then in terms of beneficence, this research will equip health professionals and community members with the tools to advocate for cleaner air in West Louisville to kind of minimize their exposure burden that they're facing. And for non-maleficence, again, having those strong data protection measures in place to prevent any sort of misuse that could lead to stigmatization. And especially something here that was kind of important is exploitation by commercial agencies. So this could be loan sharks or insurance companies or realtor agencies even. Anybody that could kind of use this data to exploit the citizens for more money based on their exposure levels. And again, mitigating that stigma or possible harm by only assessing what you set out to. So the exposure to environmental toxins and not retroactively going back and examining the data for, drugs or anything like that. And then for justice, this is an environmental justice project. So it is working to get cleaner air and healthier water and soil to the citizens of West Louisville and to get rid of that exposure burden that they're facing. And the bulk of the benefits will go directly back to the citizens of West Louisville. It is for their benefit. And then just some final applications. In terms of data sharing, how the data is shared back with the community is very important. So sharing this with or from a community member who is deeply involved in the community, but also the research process, who's not just, you know, a mouthpiece for this, would be very, very beneficial for building trust and establishing that connection between the institution and the community. And when this data is shared, sharing it in a way that is very accessible, so face-to-face or virtual, so that more people can attend. We're having these short and concise physical and electronic flyers or op-eds in the local newspapers, even the University of Louisville's Cardinal Edge, which is the student-run newspaper, things like that, social media posts, it could all be very beneficial for maximizing the engagement and awareness. And then the health impact evaluation tool is a tool being developed by RAPA, which is integrating physical address and exposure level, and it's to be used by healthcare professionals to assess their patients' exposure burdens. And a concern could be raised about this. So with any technology that's being produced ever, the biases of the programmers are integrated into it, even if it's intentional. And so you saw something very similar to this with an environmental screening tool in California, which was used to assess exposure level to influence federal decision-making and funding. And unfortunately, because of the biases that were ingrained, certain communities were underrepresented in their exposure, so they lost out a lot of federal funding. And so one of the biggest ways that this could be avoided is having a community member involved in that developmental process who can kind of guide and address any biases that might arise before they cause any problems. And if they do, having that open space for a discussion to address them. And again, having these guidelines in place that can prevent the misuse so that only healthcare professionals are using this tool. And that concludes the presentation. So if there are any questions, I will happy to answer them.
I have a question. What kind of advantage or additional information is obtained for using wastewater to assess exposure to toxic pollutants as compared to actually monitoring those pollutants in the air throughout the community?
Yeah, I think.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I am from the Environment Institute over at the University of Louisville, and we're a partner on this project.
Okay.
So one of the benefits of using wastewater to assess exposure to ambient levels of air pollution is the ambient levels don't necessarily tell you what the person in their situation is being exposed to. So when at the University of Louisville, we have developed a method to look at urine samples, to look at what metabolites our body is creating whenever we are reacting to that air pollution that we breathe in. And so wastewater-based epidemiology acts as a pooled urine sample for thousands of people. And so we can start to connect the dots between the ambient levels in an environment and those levels that people are breathing in their homes.
And as part of our project, the wastewater sampling will be conducted by the Metropolitan Sewer District at locations that correlate to the air monitoring sites within the community. And they'll be performed on a
So we'll collect breath samples weekly. So one from one of the sites that matches up with our 4 sites, the area of interest, and then we also will have a background site. So we have a background level of exposure for everyone in Louisville. We can compare and contrast what those exposures are in that number.
Is there a correlation between concentrations of the toxins in wastewater and air concentration? Is that demonstrated?
That is one of the things that we will be demonstrating. So we are creating these science and the technology to be able to make that connection. So that's not been done before, but we were.
I see. Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Those are great questions.
Any other questions?
I'm not quite sure how to ask this, so I'll just toss it out there. I understand what you're saying. Does this have any built-in bias with high-volume manufacturing sites in the specific area? Because if you look at an individual's household, that's probably going to be a low risk for environmental issues. But if you've got a high-volume source from a manufacturing, it can overwhelm the volume that's going through the system. And do you get a bias because of that?
So, yes, we are very lucky that we had very good maps of our sewer infrastructure, and it's very detailed. So what we've done is prioritize residential areas and minimize industrial areas. So, if there was a big pipe that was taking wastewater from an industrial area next to a neighborhood, we would choose a location away from that so that we would not be sampling from that larger pipe with the industrial runoff, but we would prioritize instead a local sort of sewer shed, maybe like from a manhole inside a group of neighborhood block of houses, if that makes sense. Is that what
Okay,
you're asking?
yeah, then now I got to throw a second thing, tie in with Color is. If you do what you just said, and the plant is here, the sewer is here, the residential area is here, you kind of lose that correlation. Because your air is going to be commingled if the sewer isn't. So it's a comment for that. That's it.
And I think that's one of the reasons why, we do know that there are multiple, everyone is exposed to a variety of pollution from multiple sources. Those are stationary sources. They're from mobile sources. There are also exposures that do occur within your home, some of which the University of Louisville has done research on and can be quite significant. I think as we look to this research, it will be interesting to see those discussions around that potential impact and how that, what they're actually able to see in those sewer systems. But that background sampling will also help determine some of that. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to the board for allowing me to share that. As this project gets started, we've done a lot of work in terms of community engagement, planning, that we're doing, that's ready to go at sites. Our part is to conduct that year-long study. But we are going to bring our sub-awardees, that's really our role here, is conduct the year monitoring, help our sub-awardees on this project. This is really a partnership grant with USDA. So hold all of us together under this umbrella, but we'll be sharing partners' work as it continues. This is a 3-year grant. So over the years, we hear more. Thank you for the opportunity to share Kathleen's work, which I found to be quite exceptional. It's clear analysis of this issue. This is also being used for COVID analysis. A lot of communities, including here, there's a lot of unique applications, and it'll be interesting to see them advance. And blue.
Okay. Anything else on the director's report?
That's my direction.
Okay. Moving on to various other reports. The air quality report, and I think board members have all received these reports. I'd just like to make a couple of comments and ask Director Hamilton maybe respond to that. On the PM 2.5 concentration, monthly averages and design values and so on, we see kind of a flat trend occurring over the years. And all It's all good with respect to the previous standard. 12 micrograms per meter cubed annual average. Also the 24-hour average well below that. Except now with the new standard of 9 micrograms per meter cubed per hour. Apparently some problems.
So-
Meeting.
The Clean Air Act again is a continuous.
Let me do that. Stay with the ozone, or do you want to?
But
Yeah,
I'm glad that you noted that, with respect to that 12 microgram standard that was in effect until, I think it was May of this year.
Yeah.
That, the goal isn't to hit that standard and stop. It's to continue to kind of push towards further reductions. And so on the PM front, we are currently above that 9 microgram standard. But at the end of the year, we'll see Unit 1 at Mill Creek close, and Unit 2 in 2027. And then in 2026, we'll see the completion of American Synthetic Rubber Company's coal to natural gas conversion. So we'd like to keep the work moving, even though we see a slight uptick, particularly. What's our screen? Particularly with respect to those Canadian wildfires, we're trending in the right direction. Ozone. When we get our screen back up.
ozone. Well, I was just going to comment that there's a kind of disturbing trend upward in the design, which may be climate related, not just the overall warming trend, but just year to year as well. Also, I recall that standard was to be changed to 65. Is that still coming?
There's been talk of moving that standard lower.
Yeah.
Which we talk of 55 to 65 as a potential standard.
Yeah.
The US EPA's Science Advisory Council is reviewing that standard. So in all likelihood, we'll see a recommendation from them probably in the next year. Say, I'm going to change it probably or possibly. Check with me at next month's board meeting, and I'll give you a better
Okay.
idea of the timeline on that. But yes, ozone continues to be a challenge, not just for Louisville, but for a lot of the country. We've had a good trend. Even though we are currently above that 70 really standard, each of the time that the Clean Air Act has increased or strengthened that standard, we have been able to meet. California is still working on meeting the initial ozone standard in much of the area. Clean Air Act has a toolkit. It opens up new elements within the toolkit as an area of works to bringing attainment to the area. Again, those same things that will drive down particulate matter that I mentioned. Those changes at Mill Creek, American Synthetic Rubber Company, as they reduce particulate matter emissions, they also reduce emissions of nitrogen oxides. In our area, the two precursors for ozone are nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds. We did a ozone formation study a few years ago that indicated our area is primarily NOx limited, meaning as we reduce nitrogen oxide emissions, we reduce ozone. At completion, the Mill Creek conversion will provide a reduction of about 4,000 tons per year of nitrogen oxides. That is significant. We know around us there are also other coal-fired plants that are converting to natural gas. Again, will benefit because air pollution doesn't abide by jurisdictional boundaries. With respect to your point that we're seeing a shift in temperatures, temperature is one of the elements for ozone formation. This year in particular, we saw that heat dome event in early June. That was unusual, where we had a extended period of dry weather and low winds. This year has been more beneficial in terms of rain for reducing sewer odors, which compares to the last couple of years was much better. But we saw a lot less humidity formation late in the season. And believe it or not, humidity really does help reduce ozone formation, or can. It's just kind of an odd year. As the standard goes lower, we are going to be subject more and more to weather-related impacts. It's not an excuse for not meeting Clean Air Act. We're still going to have to find ways to innovate and to reduce our emissions in order to meet that standard. So that's the work the district has before it. Clarifying where we are with last year, so we know what our design value is by removing some of the ozone impacts due to those Canadian wildfires will help us in our work as we move forward. So our first goal is to complete the exceptional event demonstrations. US EPA has come out with a proposed streamlining rule because the district is not the only entity who is looking at some enhanced work under the Clean Air Act for ozone. Comments on that streamlining proposal are due November the 4th. We're currently evaluating that proposal and how it will impact our area. But again, Clean Air Act, it's just a marvelous continuous improvement plan. And it sets out the path that we'll need to follow.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the air quality report? Okay. Moving along, we also, some other reports, the enforcement status report, any questions here? Excess emission event report. Comments or questions? Compliant investigation status summary. Any questions?
I have a question about that one.
Okay.
When I go through the report, a lot of the odors. Is there a way to find out the time that the complaint is being made versus the time that it's being investigated?
So that is in our system. I don't know. I can look at the way the report's written and see if that's something we can add.
Yeah, if we can just add the time, because it's saying like I wonder, because being out in the community in the areas that they're saying like it's a complaint is typically at night. So I don't know if it's like a call or something, and then when it's investigated, I don't know if it's during the day. There's a difference of what it smells like at night versus during the day.
Absolutely.
So that's what I just,
Most of them come in through Smart City, so it's not a phone call.
okay,
Have the time.
okay. I just wondered the verse and how that would tie into the new study of, with the people having the complaints, because I get the brunt of the complaints when I'm in the community, like, hey, I seen you on the web, like what's going on. So we can, or I could get those times, have access to that time, so I can have a better understanding. Of what-
That may be on the dashboard. I'll have to check that too.
Okay.
So with respect to odor information, we do share with MSD. They are there 24 hours. They have now integrated Smell My City reports into their customer service department because they do have people on staff who can be dispatched to try to respond and mitigate to those odors.
Okay,
For us, understanding when those complaints occur and where they occur, help us identify where we have a pattern of after-hour odor reports. And many of these are generally related to sewers.
right.
Where they're non-sewer related, we are able to dispatch our staff after hours is appropriate.
Okay.
So having people report, that's key for both us and MSD.
Okay. And would it be better if they report not anonymously? So we can get a follow-up, so they,
So that's up to them. I mean,
Okay, yeah.
we take complaints anonymously. We won't turn anybody back. If they want follow up and to help aid our investigation, because if, Smell My City especially, sometimes that's limited by where you made the complaint from, and it's not necessarily where you smell the odor. So we do call people and try to follow up and get better information to help the investigation. But I mean, I respect people's.
Yeah, I just trying to, like, help me help you.
Yeah.
Okay, that was it. That's all.
Okay. All right, thanks. Okay, well, I guess that brings us to a close. Before the meeting is adjourned, I want to remind those in attendance, the Edison Room, if you have not signed your name to the attendance sheet located on the table at the doors leading into the room, please do so. This will aid in establishing a complete and accurate board record. I will now adjourn this regular meeting of the board. And thank you all for your participation.